Hello and welcome to another video. In this video we're going to be working on zero array transformation 3. And so I definitely recommend that you did the first one, which was the problem day 2 days ago. Definitely start with that one because this one's kind of builds on that, but it's harder. So this one you're given nums and queries, and every query decrements every number by 1. And they ask you how many queries can you remove at the most and still have every num being 0. So building on the first one that just asked, like, if you run every query, can you make everything 0? You're still going to have this, like, difference array. And yeah, you can watch my video on that to figure out, like, if you haven't seen that, like, how this difference array works. I'm going to assume you did that and you know how this works. But, like, what changes do we need to make here? So first of all, let's go through the example. So in the examples, so this number needs to get decremented twice and this number needs to get decremented twice. So we can just run, like, these two queries. That will do it, and then this is extra. So we can remove 1. In this example, so we basically need every number to get decremented once, so we can run, like, this guy, and then get rid of the rest. So that's 2. But what are the things we have to do? So if we have a bunch of numbers, and this number is like 5, 4, 3, 8, whatever. Like, how do we pick what query to get rid of? Like, do we just run them all and then figure out how to get rid of it? It doesn't really work like that very well. So instead, we're going to pick what queries we're going to run. And then once a number is 0, then we don't need to run that query anymore, essentially. So I'm going to show you how that looks like. So here we have this, like, difference array again. And let's say we have a bunch of queries. So let's say we have queries that are like, we can just draw some here. And we're going to sort the queries as well. So let's say this query is like 0 to 7. Maybe I'll actually make these numbers a bit smaller too. So 2, 1, 2. Maybe like that. And let's make this shorter. Okay. So let's say the first one is like 0 to 5. Second one is 0 to 1. Like 0 to 2. Some more. 3 to 4. Or let's go 1 to 4. 1 to 3. 1 to 5. And then maybe a couple more. So let's go like 3 to 5. And maybe like 4 to 4 or something. Let's say these are all of our queries. Okay. So, like, how do we pick what to run? Well, we can kind of just be greedy about it. Or first we can sort our queries. And we're just going to sort based on the starting index. But it's not enough to just sort because, like, a query might not start at the exact number, but you still need to run that query. So for example, you might be at like number 3, but then there might need to be a query. Like, imagine these are all zeros, and then you have a query that's like 0 to 5. So the query might not start at your exact number. So that's why you kind of need 2 parts of this problem. Is you're gonna need to sort the queries, and then we're gonna have a heap. And our heap is going to contain the end index of every query. And same kind of thing for the difference array. So if a query ends at 5, for example, that means we're going to subtract 1 at the index after the one that it ends. So actually it'll be here. So, like, let's say we're on this first number. So for this first number, what we're going to do is we're going to take every single query that is possible to run, and we're going to put it into the heap. Yeah. And we're just going to put the end index of every query. So at index 0, like, we can't run any of these because we're not at those yet. So we're going to put these into the heap, and this is going to be a max heap, and I'll explain why. So these are all in the heap. And so you're going to have, let's see, 2 cases. Case 1, query ends before our number. So, like, we could have had something earlier in the heap. The query ends before a number, and if we run that query, like, it doesn't actually decrease our number. So in this case, we basically just can pop it and be done. And the second case is query ends at or after our number. And that means that we actually have to include that query in the queries we have. And so we can just have, like, a counter of queries. And then at the end, we can just say how many did we run, how many were there total, and what's the diff there. So like here, we have 3 queries in our heap. And the reason we want to have max heap is because like any one of these is going to reduce our number by 1. But we want to greedily pick the one that goes the farthest, because like we're trying to minimize the number we use. We can use all of these. They'll give you the same count, but like we'd want to pick the one that goes the farthest because that minimizes the least. So what it's gonna look like here is we're gonna pop this 5. We need one more thing here, by the way, that I forgot. So we need like the running total that we had in the previous problem. So like I said, take a look at that one. So the first thing we're actually gonna do is in this difference array, we're gonna add our diff to the total. So in this case, it's 0. But we popped the 5, which means we're gonna use this query in our total. So actually, we're gonna like remove the diff and then add the diff at the end, right? Because the query removes 1. So the total is gonna be -1 because this query covers this section. And because this query covers this section, we need to add 1 after, because we need to reset it back to 0, right? Like this query only decrements these. So the total is gonna be -1 here. And our goal is basically for the total plus the number to be less than or equal to 0. So here it's not. So we need to run another query. Also, we ran one, so we're going to increment the count. So we need to get another query. So which one should we pick? We should just pick the one that ends later. So we're going to do this here. That query ended at 2, so at 3 we're going to add 1. And now our total is -2. And now this number is zeroed out, so we're good, and we can move on to the next one. Then here, once again, we're going to take every query that starts with this number, put in the heap. So we have all these. So we have 4, 3, 5. And so note that we still had this query that we never used. But now this query or any of these will decrement that number, right? It doesn't matter which one you pick. So here our total is -2. And because our total is -2, we already... Yeah, we basically use this query and this query. This number's already zeroed out, so we don't need to do anything. So, but let's say this number was bigger. Let's say this number was like 3. So if this number was 3, then we need to pick one more query. So we pick this one, the one that ends with a 5, which is, and I can highlight the ones we picked so far. So we picked this one, we picked this one, and now we're gonna pick this one. So we're gonna pop this 5 from our max heap. We're gonna increment the count to 3 now because we used 3 queries. We're gonna increment the total for decrement, and then we're gonna update where this query ends. So now this is done. Then over here, we're going to add these again. There's nothing that starts at 2. And our total is already like 0, so we can just move on. Here, our difference array is 1, so we're going to add 1 to the total. So our total is -2 now, because this query is over now. So our total is -2, and now we're going to add everything in here. So this 3 ends with 5. And we're still at 0, so we're good, so we can move on. Then here's the 4. So the 4, there's only 1, so we're going to add the 4. And our total is still at -2, but it needs to be -3. So we need to pick another query. So we're going to pick this 5. And this 5 was one of the ones that ended with a 5 that we didn't pick earlier, so this one. Yeah. And then we're going to subtract our total. And we're going to add 1 here. Then we're going to go over here, and at 5, there is nothing. So then our total is -3, and we're basically done. So how many queries did we pick? We picked 1, 2, 3, 4. And then however many we removed is just the total minus that. So there were 7 queries, or 8 queries. We picked 4, so the answer is 4. Yeah, I guess we never had this case happen, but you will have this as well, where like you're on some number, and then like let's say you're on this number, and then you have a query here that ends with 1. Like you would just pop all these. Like let's say this number was 8 or something, or like 4, and you were like, okay, I need to get more. So then you would pop the biggest, but then this query ends at 4, so this doesn't actually affect anything. So we're not going to use it. This query ends at 4, it doesn't affect anything. Not going to use it. This query ends at 3, and then once you have an empty heap, like this is how you have the no solution. You have an empty heap, and then you can't decrement low enough, and then you would return -1 there. But in our case, we would return 4. So hopefully that makes sense. Definitely would recommend doing the other problem first. So let's take a look at the code. Not that hard, to be honest. So first you sort. I was looking at like how to sort nested arrays in Java. So there's kind of 2 ways. You can do a comparing int, or you can do an A, B, and then like A is 0 minus B 0. Either one's fine. So you have the difference array. and then you have a max heap. And so max heap, you can do this in two ways as well. You can do A, B, B minus A instead of A minus B, or you could do comparator reverse order. Either one's fine. So we're going to have this like running total, the result, and J is going to be what's the index in the, I don't remember. Oh yeah, what's the index in the queries that we're on? So while we're on a number, we're going to also have an index on the query just to see like, can we use that one? Okay, so essentially what we do for every single number is, first of all, we add the difference array. Then we take every single query that starts with this number, we're going to put into the heap. We're going to add the end time. And then we're going to keep having this while loop, like while this number is still not 0. If we don't have a heap, then we can't do anything, so we just return -1. Otherwise, we remove. And if that number ends before us, that query is useless, so we're not going to use it. Otherwise, we're going to decrement our total because we're going to use that query, so that'll decrement our total by 1 because it's going to affect our number. We're going to add to the number of queries we have, so this is the res number of queries we have. And then we're going to appropriately add the end of that query to the difference array. And at the end, it's just however many queries you had minus the queries you used. So yeah, basically here we sorted queries, and then we also had a heap with queries. So heap is like, I guess technically, no, actually, yeah. So the most you'll ever push and pop into a heap is Q. So yeah, it's Q log Q for the heap and Q log Q for the sort. And then the space. So we made a difference array, which is length n. We also made the priority queue of queries, which could be length q, worst case. Yeah, so the code is actually not nearly as bad as I thought. But yeah, I feel like I think there was a problem very, very similar to this. I guess I haven't done this one before today, so yeah, like I think. But there was a problem very, very similar to this as well, where you have this like difference array and you're doing this stuff like this. But yeah, and also yeah, so you can see this is like a medium, but it's a 2400 medium, which is like harder than most hards. So definitely not an easier problem. And yeah, if you want to know how you can see this thing instead of medium, I think I've said this before, you can get like a LeetCode difficulty rating Chrome extension, which is kind of nice. So you can actually see like the contest like rating of the problems instead of medium, because you might see like this is medium, like this is ridiculous, and then yeah, so this kind of tells you that it's like massively harder than most. But yeah, it's gonna be all for this one. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next one. Thanks for watching.